Hey guys, Matt Schilling here. I wanted to put this in front of the Ty Halpin talk from the NCAA. Thought it was important that this got read first so there wasn't any confusion. People turned the video off halfway, angry about something that was said or something like that during this talk. Ty was gracious enough to come to us as the first time in something like 8 years that the NCAA had come out and talked to us. And I thought it was something real good, and I appreciate Chad Bunn for taking care of that. But I want to read this email, so excuse me while I look down and read it. But I want to read this email so that there was the clarification beforehand in regards to the 2017 proposal for video technology, coaching video allowed in the press box and in locker rooms. It said, I wanted to clarify something, some comments and questions from today's talk. Again, really appreciate the opportunity to connect and discuss. To be as clear as possible, for 2016, the rules relating to coaches' booths and the use of video has not changed from the rules used last year. Only broadcast/streaming video is allowed to be viewed on a monitor, and no DVR capability is allowed. For 2017, video in the coaches' booths and locker room areas will be allowed for coaching purposes. This includes coaches' camera feeds, for example, sideline and end zone, which I confirmed with Rogers Redding and others on the committee and conference representatives. This underscores the need for us all to understand what video means. My confusion was that we spent a lot of time on restricting the coaches' feeds to certain views. This is not part of the 2017 rule. So any and all feeds that are available, that are able to be provided to both coaches' booths in an equitable manner will be allowed as part of the new rule. Sorry for any confusion. I believe this is in line with what your expectations were coming into the week. Okay, so if you have any questions, if you need this email sent to you, Chris Luke, James Duncan, Darby Dunnigan, Errol Seaver, they'll be more than happy to forward the email on to you. But to summarize quickly, what he said is that coaches' video will be allowed in the coaches' booths and in the locker room, sideline and end zone, for the 2017 season. For the 2016 season, nothing has changed. With that, I will let you guys view the talk in its entirety. Thanks for watching.
Hey guys, welcome as one of the older guys in the room. Beyond imagination, 22 years ago when we started in South Bend, speaking for those guys that were there, very impressive. Not only impressive to see the amount of guys here, but it's 8:30 in the morning. It's awesome, guys. Give yourself a hand, man. That's big time. That's big time. Hey, listen, when we started CSVA, one of the things we wanted to do was get the NCAA involved. And we finally came to that point. We're very excited to have Ty Halpin here today. I met Ty several years ago at an officiators clinic in San Diego. And just Ty's a super great guy without his resume. He works very, very closely with Roger Reddings every year on our rules. And we're very grateful for the things they do help us understand what's going on. I got to pull my glasses off because of age, and I want to quickly read Ty's bio for you. Ty's the Associate Director of Championships and Alliances at the NCAA and has been with the association since March of 1999. Through 17 years with the NCAA, Halpin has had a variety of positions, serving as staff liaison for numerous committees in a governance structure. Most recently, Halpin worked with the Playing Rules Committee for football, men's basketball, ice hockey, baseball, and men's lacrosse. In addition to guiding the Playing Rules Oversight Panel, additionally Halpin serves as NCAA liaison for several officiating boards, including College Football Association, LLC, and the Men's College Basketball Association. Halpin also maintains the NCAA partnership with Arbiter Sports, which provides tools for officiating education and management and the assignment and payment of game officials for many NCAA championships. Before the NCAA, Halpin worked at the University of Kentucky as a postgraduate intern in game management, marketing, sports information, and administration. After the internship, Halpin worked at Transylvania University in a dual role as an assistant AD and administrator in the office of the president. While at Transylvania, Halpin served on a task force that guided the school from NAIA status to transition to the NCAA Division III membership. Ty is a graduate of the University of Kentucky in 1996 with a degree in journalism and earned a Master's of Arts degree in sports management at California University. Just one other thing, if Ty opens it up to question and answers, which I'm assuming he will, it may be nice so he'll get to know us a little bit. If you'll stand and state your name and the university that you're here representing today, I think that'd be great. So we can, and that helps us kind of get to know each other too. So without any further ado, very appreciative, Ty, to have you here. And we'll turn the time over to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe. Thank you, thank you. It certainly is a pleasure to be here this morning, and met maybe several of you in this room through the years, probably by email, not in person, because honestly didn't even know this organization existed, but I'm glad it does, because it's very important to a lot of things that we do at the NCAA. And as Chad said, I think connecting with this group is very important, and I look forward to helping our staff back in Indy connect a little bit more on certain sports, but also during championships and our events, how things may change for you when you're hosting or when you're on the road with your teams. Your voice is important to us, and it's you've become an extension of our schools in a very powerful way with the work you do. So I'm going to go through a little bit of the football rules piece, because Chad and the crew asked me to really focus on football. This obviously has been an interesting couple of years for football rules. On the technology front, that's a big part of what I'm here to talk about a little bit today. But overall, I want to make sure you guys understand, guys and gals, how much we appreciate what you do, but also want to hear your concerns, your questions. They don't always get to the right people on campus. When we realize that's a challenge, but organizations like this are very important to us. If you can go ahead and advance that slide, thank you. So I hit on the first one here and a couple of these, but the bottom one here. So does anybody know what CSVA is? Has anybody heard of that? It's the facilities guys and gals. They have a group under NACDA that is basically for collegiate facility management, that kind of thing. About 5 or 6 years ago, we connected with them, and this is kind of what I hope this partnership could become. We connected with them and said, what are your challenges when the NCAA is involved with a facility question, facility rule? And they shared some really honest, open feedback. The room was probably about half this size and not as quite as full. So that's a feather in your cap for this group. But one of the things that ended up coming out of that, long story short, is when our bids go out for championships, there's a facilities and game management guide that we've produced with them that's online, and it's really extensive, really got all the diagrams, everything you would possibly want for all divisions of hosting championships, but also just putting on a contest. So when AD says, hey, we're going to build a new softball facility, we want to make sure we can host Division II regionals or Division I regionals, what have you. They can go to that very easily, very quickly, and know. Used to be they would have to piece that together through several different departments at the NCAA. And I don't know if you've ever called our office, but it's hard to find the right people to talk to, and you probably get bounced around a few times. So that's just an example of the partnership that I think from the CSVA group, they've been really, really fortunate, really happy that we've been able to do that. And from our perspective, it's given everybody one source where the information's correct. You don't have to worry about anything else. I don't know if that kind of thing is going to be applicable here, but video policies are certainly going to continue to grow, right? And who knows where video will take us in the future. So we're open to whatever you guys think might help your membership, help your bosses to understand how important your jobs are. That's the bigger one. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the rules structure from football, and I promise it won't be this boring. Our coaches, who's got a coach on that's been on one of our committees before? So if you guys know any of this stuff, just bear with me. It's all divisions in football in all of our sports for the rules of competition. So that means regular season rules, everything that's between the lines. It's mostly coaches that make up these rules, and then partially administrators. I would venture to guess that that's probably going to change in the not too distant future, because coaches don't really always have the overall picture of the sport in mind, and sometimes things like technology they're not always on the ball with. But we created a couple years ago a subgroup, mainly of administrators at conferences, of a technology subcommittee. So we were getting bombarded with things like helmet cameras, and can we do a mic in the that sits in the middle of the field, just to get a better sense of bringing people from the outside, mostly from broadcasters, bringing the audience really into the game a little bit more. You've seen it in the NFL, right? The guy that runs out with the camera after a touchdown or before they go to a break and all that stuff. And honestly, our administrators, I think, felt like that was a little bit too much. Didn't want the game to look like XFL, if those are old enough to remember that league. And you know, there's also a bit of the haves and the have-nots too, like how much technology can you do at home versus the road, and all those things, right? We were getting pressured though pretty significantly this year to do something. Now, something means a lot of things, right? So we looked at all the things on the table, wanted to make sure that we were not impacting the balance of sort of offense and defense and health and safety issues and all the things that we have to deal with. And we thought, right or wrong, that the coaching booths and the locker rooms would be pretty simple to open up. Got a lot of feedback when we started that process that, yeah, we could do that. Now, what one school might have a budget for versus another is an issue. But when we looked at this, you know, hockey and a lot of other sports, basketball even, has the ability. They don't say whether or not you're allowed to look at things in the locker room. So we thought that would be a kind of a no-brainer. And all of this is included with football coaches, et cetera, that said, yeah, if I had this, I would do this. And if we didn't, it's not the end of the world. We've lived with that for a long time. The playing rules or the Division I Football Oversight Committee, who is dealing with just about everything, every aspect of football, also supported this on the front end, and really thought, yeah, that maybe there's some marketing opportunities here, maybe there's some revenue opportunities. Why do we limit this for coaches if it can make the game better? And then our competition committee, who is chaired by Bill Battle at Alabama, the AD at Alabama, Coach Sweeney, I saw some of the Clemson guys here. He actually said, you know, I'm going to set up position coaches right next to the box, and we're going to have 12 computers, 12 feeds coming in for our guys, and we're going to go crazy with it. He said, it'll be great, but I'll need a new video staff. So we're trying to employ you guys as much as we can. Go ahead. So to take a step back, so I'll end with what the outcome was. You guys all know that probably, but football started in 1869. Who played this game? Anybody? Chad did. Chad was in that, yeah.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, guys.
It was an Ivy League school and now a Big Ten school. Princeton and Rutgers. Princeton and Rutgers, yes. Okay, so it was all about health and safety. Next slide. That's my point. Now we moved to broadcasting era, right? I couldn't find any 50s footage, but I thought it was a pretty cool picture, so I'm putting it in. But you know, ESPN, when they started to change things for everybody, right? Like you had the old coaches cam and that kind of stuff. Next slide. And now we're up to things like this for practice. I mean, you guys do a lot more work than you ever thought about doing in practice than you do for game day, right? I mean, I'm only concerned really with game day, but that's a big part of what you all do every day, every sport now. Next. This is the helmet camera that was brought to us, and they tried to argue that it was a health and safety issue because quarterbacks could learn better and then protect themselves better later. And we kind of saw through that pretty quickly, but it does give you an interesting look in practice and that kind of thing. Coaches are a group that is never going to be comfortable with each other, that you're going to use it for the right reasons. So they always assume that you're going to have that helmet camera pointed to the sideline to grab their signals and use it later, right? I mean, that's their number one concern. Go ahead. So now we got pylon cameras, right? For the broadcast, video replay is a big part of what we do, and has become a much bigger part of the game, so much that we actually produced a separate casebook about only video replay plays. We had a clinic of 500 replay officials up in Chicago a couple weeks ago. It's huge. We all know it's huge. And guys Chad's age and above shouldn't probably be doing that, but they still are, right?
Yeah.
That was funny.
It is funny.
Next. So we get a look. This is the look we used to have on video replay, right? And could I tell you that guy's definitely in bounds? That Beckham Jr. made that catch? He's absolutely in bounds. If you called this out of bounds, would we be able to say, yeah, I'm overturning that. I'm making that a touchdown? Next slide. Oh, okay, that was bad order. Sorry about that. Okay. Now you can, right? Because we know he's got the ball here, and he's in, right? Oh, I would hope we all say yes. Okay. Anyway, that's changed everything that we do, the technology, the HD, all that stuff has gotten so much better. It's amazing, right? And that hasn't happened in the grand scheme of football, 1869 to today. It's happened in a blip, right? So anyway, go ahead, next. But this is what you guys are really about, right? What the coaches need, what your teams need to get better, all those things. Now, all those things are changing the game in maybe incremental pieces through the years. Coaches watched football back in the old days. Next. But now coaches are looking at things on the sideline. And this is where we've gotten the most pressure from coaches to make the change. Just go ahead and do it. We've had probably 6 meetings with the NFL at various times when they've been in town for the combine, which is fortunate for us, where they've said, look, we've got, you used to have red hats, right? Everybody has one red hat. They've got about almost the whole rainbow of colors of hats on the sideline. If you ever look down there, and realistically, they're spending roughly $200,000 to $300,000 a home game on things that don't relate to football. They relate to technology on the sideline. So a closed Wi-Fi signal access for their coaches, for their iPads, or excuse me, their Surfaces. I don't work for the NFL, so it's okay that I said that. And all that stuff has to be monitored, has to be, which is good for you all and people that need to be employed for that stuff. But they basically said, look, it's not as easy as you think it is. There's a lot that goes into this. So that's where we've kind of pumped the brakes a few times and said, there's a lot of issues with helmet cameras or helmet communication. That's another one that coaches have pushed us on. But this is the big one where they said, hey, we've all got tablets. Why don't we just go ahead and use them during the game as well? And so it's not as simple, is my point. Go ahead. So our issues are fairness, health and safety, which doesn't really have too much to do with you, with the exception of like medical review and that kind of thing, which has helped. Game balance, and for a lot of the discussions we've had, fast offense versus more plotting offenses. Are the rules too skewed towards the offense? I feel like we're in a better place now than we were maybe a couple years ago, even though Auburn and a few others don't think we let them go fast enough, but that's the way it goes. And then obviously technology is the biggest bullet that I'm here to talk about today. Go ahead. So new rule for 2017, right? This was passed for implementation for this year. I'm sure you all know that. It got pulled back after kind of some not only an outcry, but more of a, hey, from your group to your conferences, hey, this isn't going to be as simple as maybe flipping the switch on and giving everybody access. All right. Now this is printed in the rule book, which will be out. I think we get them back on June 1st, and it'll be online maybe later this week. We just finalized everything, but video can be used in the press box and locker room for coaching purposes. So that's a pretty big change for us, pretty big shift. Now, many other sports are silent on it, so coaches have done it for a long time. Hockey, I work with hockey as well. That's one where between periods. They're looking at stuff in the locker room. Not everybody, but a lot of teams are. And definitely during the game, they're looking at plays saying, hey, you might want to challenge that or whatever. Not allowed on the team area and sideline. So anything in the team area box, where everybody knows what that is, or the sideline for coaching purposes. That should actually include the for coaching purposes. So the athletic trainers, NATA, have asked for the ability to have video. In some cases, you may be asked about this from your athletic trainers, to have somewhere outside the team area a small video monitor for them to look at how an injury occurred. And they have said, basically we had an experiment with it last year, they've said that that has been significantly helpful to see whether or not it was an ACL, an MCL, maybe it's not as severe as we think, concussion-related things. Obviously, we're going to allow that, but we've still said it has to stay out of the team area. That is a challenge for you guys that have to set it up. I get that. But our coaches are who they are, and they know that if it gets in the team area for medical purposes, it's suddenly going to be used for coaching purposes. Next. So only in the press box, and right now it's only going to be the live feed that comes in on the video. So no coaches' feeds. What we found or what we've discussed was many stadiums may have the capability to wire it that way or to get a Wi-Fi signal there. Many don't, and our conferences really aren't looking to spend more money on any of this stuff, as you know. Game management is kind of in charge of doing that. That means you guys, right? So in many cases, Division II and Division III were really ready to go. And they said, we've got it. Our high school team that plays here uses it too, because it's wide open in high school. You can do basically anything. And we've understood that. So it's been a weird flip of Division I FBS saying, hey, hold on, we got to make sure this is fair and equal for everybody, which is fair and equal. So next. So no other videos allowed for coaching purposes. That hopefully makes that clear. The medical thing that I talked about, and yeah.
Just to be clear, you said no coaches video, just TV video?
Just the broadcast that's coming in. So if it's streaming, you can pump that in, but it's got to be the same for both boxes.
What's that? That's this year or that's what's the
That's not this year. Next year, 2017 season.
So there's no coaches video on the sideline.
That's all.
No coaches video on the sideline.
Medical only.
Right, medical only on the sideline, and that's outside the team area. So nothing for coaching purposes in the enclosure.
But in the booth, no coaches video either?
In the booth, no coaches video.
On the monitor or on the computer?
Whatever the feed is that's coming in that they're able to capture and manipulate, that you're able to capture and manipulate, it's got to be the broadcast.
Sorry,
Yeah.
there's confusion on some of the rule portion, I believe, is that you're saying basically all the rule stuff we're talking about right now is coming into effect for 2017, aside from the medical, which comes in this season, correct?
So the initial, when we initially put this in, it was going to be for this season. The FBS conferences basically said, look, there's enough questions about this. Let's pause until 2017. We can work out the technology, the technicalities of all this stuff. So this part of the rule is 2017, not for this season. The medical part was an experiment last year. Some conferences did it, some didn't. It's open to everybody this year. The medical personnel can use it. It's part of the medical spotter, if you guys are aware of that sits in some conferences, sits up in the booth with the video replay official. Some conferences has a separate area. Some is on the sideline. So that just allows that video to be used by a team personnel, team administrator, et cetera, medical person, but not for coaching purposes.
It has to be broadcast video.
That one has to be broadcast as well, yeah. Yep.
So with the broadcast, if that's in the coach's box, would they be allowed to like rewind, do the same thing that the instant replay text do?
That's the difference, yeah. So the question was, the video that's in the broadcast or in the coaches' booths, will they be able to do the same things you guys do with your software, rewind it, clip it up, all that stuff? Yes, that's the biggest difference here. The broadcast piece has already been in place, right? They could only watch the live broadcast and didn't have DVR capabilities, any of that stuff.
They have monitors in their booth.
They have monitors. That's all they have, right? And they got to be the same. That's the biggest thing. The coaches feel like this has got to be the same for everybody. Now, that doesn't mean you can't have 5 guys up there taking the same feed in, if you got the capability, and breaking it up position by position. That's a reality. That could happen. And then at halftime, you sit with your position coach and say, here's what we got. Or in real time, the coaches, other teams got the ball, the offensive coach is looking at their last series. That's the reality. Offensive coordinators, I think, might be up there more if they are sometimes now, but they may be up there all the time now. Question?
The DVR, if the home team is using the DVR capabilities, do they have to provide that capability to the away team, or is it on them to bring their own?
It's on them to bring their own. So you don't have to provide hardware. You just got to provide the feed and make sure that the spigot's open for them. Yep. The other challenge, which I think the conferences really have to work out. The rules committee can only do so much. What happens if the feed goes out in the visitors booth, right? Do we have to turn the home team booth off?
Like we do with comms?
We're not sure yet. All these scenarios are being worked through, but we could use your help on realistically your home team guy having to go into their booth during the game. That's not a great situation, right?
No.
Question here.
Our coaches are under the impression that it's going to be coaches' video. That's what. Next, you talk to a coach and say you're going to get to watch video. They think it's coaches' video, not broadcast.
Next year.
But coaches, your point is, they think coaches' video is part of this,
Yes.
not broadcast.
Everybody thinks yeah. Nobody wants to see broadcast. Maybe the trainer.
Yeah.
So next year.
Our discussion has been broadcast only.
What I'm saying is I don't think they're getting that.
Yeah.
No.
Unbelievable. The NCAA may not be communicating with the coaches as clearly.
They think they're
Well,
getting
that way-
video.
They don't always look at what we send them. I understand because we do send them a lot of stuff, but
I've been in it since the 1st of February.
that's an easy clarification, but obviously not for this season.
Important clarification.
That's a big one.
That's huge for us.
Yeah.
That's huge
Okay,
for us.
we'll get that out.
As of last week, most of the people thought it was still coaching.
With the
Yep.
coaches'
Now,
video.
wouldn't that be solved by just requiring the coach's video to go to the TV truck and be available for broadcast, and then
Well, I doubt they're going to put it on the broadcast very often, right? That's not really compelling
right, but
TV.
if you were able to give it to them, now whether they broadcast it or not, but it's still theirs, just like in replay, they don't necessarily broadcast
They already get it all 22.
every view, every angle.
Yeah,
Wouldn't that be the same
It could,
process? 'Cause
but
that's what we're doing in the ACC.
But if our limit is to the broadcast only, that's all you can take in, then they're not going to put that. They might put it on there for 1 or 2 shots, but they're not going to put the whole thing on there. But we'll clarify that because that's, I'm sure.
If it's available to TV, what's the harm at that point?
Well,
TV just won't use it.
what we're saying is it's the broadcast only like it is now, and that's what you can take in. Now, TV's not going to use it. If they happen to put it on there, great.
It says, the slide said monitors, but what about electronic equipment like laptops and surfaces?
Yeah, all the equipment, all the hardware is fine. That's what we're bringing into the box now.
But that's
For coaches' video.
that's for
For-
coaches' video, correct? Or can you only do
You can only use the only feed is the broadcast feed.
on
What we talked about, what we passed was only the broadcast feed.
On the monitor.
on the monitor or for the capture
For coaching purposes.
We're sorry, there's
No, this is good, I'm glad.
TVs.
and we're
And
Right.
they're already
What
there.
about surfaces that are in front of a coach that has that you can wire to have the coach?
Gotcha. So the coaches' videos is that's a fair question for us to get clarification on because obviously that's probably the number one thing they want, right? Let me get back to you guys on that one because I think when we talked about it, the monitor was going to be whatever the broadcast was only, and that's what you could take in. Now, I think
I don't think you'd find anybody that would be against doing the monitor or the broadcast and DVR capability right now.
Right.
They would pass out in 2 seconds.
It's like
right
replay.
now.
right.
We're talking about the rule that we saw said electronic devices, laptops.
To bring in the coach video.
Coaches'
Yeah.
video.
Yep.
They look every day.
And then
And that's what we had passed initially, but when we got to that point where the conferences said, hey, we need to hold off on this until 2017, that was one of the big concerns, was doing all the wiring, all the extra equipment that goes into that to bring coaches' videos into the booth. They felt like we needed to hit the pause button.
So this is something rolled out in phases where the first year is just the broadcast copy, then 2 years later after we go through that, we're going to introduce a coach's copy to that?
That's kind of the intent of the conferences anyway. But you know what? They're hearing the same feedback at meetings that are going on right now in their conferences, and their coaches may say, well, it doesn't really make any difference if you don't have coaches' feeds. So we could be back here next year saying, yep, coaches' feeds are okay. As of right now, that's not the case. The guy in the back had a question.
Yeah, so I'm seeing everything related to video. Maybe the question was asked, I didn't hear up there. What about non-video related electronics? So if it's not, if you have an iPad.
Yeah, so tablets, iPads, Surfaces, LG, whatever they have, all that stuff is now available. So next year, not this year. 2017. So if you had, what we talked about in the meeting was, you break down film obviously on the opponent. You could have that available to you, right, from the previous game and say they just did this, or whatever. Only in the press box, only in the locker room. 2017.
What's the limit, less than reputable coaches from using those devices to record stuff from their booth?
Yes.
What's the limit coaches from doing it now? Conference policy, game management. So what I deal with is generally what the stripes are able to enforce. Obviously, none of this is enforceable by them, or should be. It's policing it by the conference. Yeah.
What about like stills? Can we take use the iPad, take a still picture and print it?
For this year, no.
In 17.
2017, a still picture would be fine because you've got those devices up there, that kind of thing.
Printer on the sideline.
Oh, printer? No. Nothing on the sideline. You can do that in the press box, though.
Okay.
Another question, man. We got to like.
Give you a scenario here. What's this? 2017. We have someone going ahead and taking still pictures, printing it they're printing it in the locker room, but after halftime they take it to the sideline. Is that a violation?
So 2017, taking a picture from the press box,
They print it in the locker
sending it to the locker room, printing it, and bringing it out.
after halftime. Is that a violation?
This is why we put the brakes on.
Yeah. That's a good question. I don't see why we probably wouldn't, but I'm not going to make that call today. But these are the kinds of questions we need.
Yeah.
Let's go back here first, then we'll come up. You. Yep.
Yes, sir. Keith Smith, Kennesaw State. My question is, when it comes to other things like replay and that, we're all mandated by a conference and what we have to have.
Mm-hmm.
So why is this all of a sudden Wild Wild West? You can do and choose and pick and play and do whatever you want to do.
Yeah, that's a good question. So why do conferences mandate, one of the providers across the conference, and then not by an institutional level, or allow institutions to do whatever they want at their level? Part of that's, I think, budgets I mean, a conference could say, look, everybody has two iPads only or two Surfaces only in the coach's booth. They could do that. They could be more specific than what our very broad rule would be. What we've heard, the feedback is that, like Stanford is an example, they're going to be able to come up with some crazy stuff that's not available on the market. They're also an Apple school, so they're not going to.
Nice job, Gleason.
They're not going to.
Look at him back there. He's just beaming.
They're not going to partner with somebody that's doing Microsoft or whatever. I mean, that's an example, but that could happen where somebody's an LG school or whatever. And I don't think the conferences are going to mandate that kind of stuff. Okay, come up here.
All right, so the feed that's coming into the box is broadcast, but we can have any technology we want in the box. So there's nothing stopping me from taking my cards from the sideline, bringing it down, and editing in that box, and the coaches are able to watch what I'm doing.
The cards, you mean?
Like our cards,
Our video.
Video coach, yeah. Yep.
Because it's pretty quick. I can go after a series, run down into the coach's box, pop into my computer.
Well, the whole coaches' views, that kind of thing is obviously one that we need to clarify. And if coaches want it, if the conferences work it out and they say, hey, we want the coaches' feeds, then that'll be in for 17. That's why we have time. Right now, my understanding of it is that's not part of this.
So I couldn't do that. That's what you're saying.
Right now.
You could not do that right now. Yeah.
It's not 2017 yet.
No, I mean in 20. Well, okay, it's just still working out.
Yeah, but that example where you say, look, I'm going to take this, jump it upstairs, and start working on it, and the coach may look over your shoulder. What do you guys think? Should we allow coaches' feeds up there?
That's what they want.
No.
Well, no. I know coaches want
That's what
it.
they want.
I know coaches want it, but what do you guys think?
Yes. No.
It doesn't matter what we think.
All right, go ahead.
Lori Collins, University of Hawaii. Number one, not all of us should or can be in the locker room at halftime. Some of us only travel 2 people. Some of us don't have any men on their staff. And some of us have conferences that won't mandate anything, whether it's to help the team or not, because they don't want to get involved or force you to spend money and mandate it and have to pony up for that.
Yep. Very well said.
And the coaches are expecting coaches' video.
Yeah, I mean, every institution is going to have some differences, right? Some challenges, technology, whatever, that are going to have to be managed at the local level. I think if we can help say either coach's video very clearly is either in or out, that's where we come in, right? To be able to.
All of us are on TV either.
Yep.
So
It's going to
I don't
have
want
to
my
be.
coach to come up to me like, where's my feed? And I go, Coach, we don't have a TV truck, or it's a student broadcast, or some other kind of
Replay board.
half situation.
Yep.
Well, why don't get it done? I had a broadcast camera in front of my coach's booth, and they're like, get that thing out of here. I'm like, I can't just pick up a 5-ton camera and tripod and move it in 5 minutes.
Right.
They don't understand what we have to do on the back end.
They don't
It's
care
hard.
either.
And they don't care. It's getting it done now.
Completely understood. And coaches don't really understand why we can't just make all the rules what we want them to, what they want them to be too. Like,
What we want it to be. We have to run this.
do you know what you want it to be? I don't think there's full consensus on that. In the back, sorry. Stanford.
Stanford.
Wow. Popular, yeah.
Well, just to clarify this rule to me sounds like we're going to provide TV to our coaches, which we already provide, but they can bring
They can now
laptops in
manipulate it.
next year as it stands.
TV that broadcasts that can be manipulated. So right now you can't
All right, so
do any of that stuff.
everybody get their TV. What's your feeling of if we're going to have required for infrastructure? Because Coach Shaw has always some conversations that are going on in the
Yep.
committee, and that Clemson doesn't care what it costs, Todd. Almost ready for the SEC, but almost. But and the coaches on the conference side, and Dory's in the conference where the money's a little bit harder, and they decide it's going to happen. What we're trying to get from you is what do we plan on? So we're trying to figure out how much infrastructure we need to build. What's your gut instinct on what we need to get ready for? Because technology means everything. I mean, anything.
He's not jet lagged. That's impressive speech. So after the conference meetings that are happening still now, that this is on their agenda to discuss. And I'm sure the coaches have made it very clear that they want coaches' cameras, coaches' feeds.
I don't think they have, because if they had, we wouldn't be having this discussion right now. So, I'm sorry, I don't mean to not raise my hand.
Yeah.
But you keep telling us that the suppression. I can guarantee you, Dan Mullen thinks that in 2017, he's going to walk into his locker room and have cut-ups of third down and XOs.
Yeah. So
when you say that, well, they're under the impression or they think, I'm sorry. And they think that they're going to have this, and for us to keep saying, oh, well, they're under the impression, I don't think, you know, we work with these coaches every day, and all of us know that you have to spoon feed them. You have to walk into their office and say, Coach, no, you are not going to have this. You are going to have this. And I think where a lot of us are kind of disconnected right now is the fact that you're telling us, well, they're under the oppression, or this is their only agenda, whereas we think maybe you should, guys, go back to the NCAA, send out a blast, email, a text, or put it in a big freaking giant text or something and say, it is
Hit 'em over the head.
broadcast, not
Well,
coaches.
NCAA style is not to use any bigger than 12 point. I just got to be honest. And there's a Mississippi joke out there about the lights going off too. You guys take that and run with it. But hey, there you go. But in all seriousness, Mark Womack at the SEC, Ed Stewart at the Big 12, all those guys are asking these questions of their coaches. Now, they may all say, oh yeah, of course we're getting coaches' feeds. And they may say, okay, I guess we are. Now, when they come back and say, oh, we're all under the impression that our coaches definitely want this and we think we should do it. When that happens, that's when the memo needs to go out, right? And it could be a memo that just says that. And one word, coach's camera, yes. That's more than one word, but anyway. Let's go over here because I haven't started on the left side.
Campo Florida State. It's interesting because the technology we're talking about implementing was implemented in the preseason of the NFL last year for the first time. But helmet radios were implemented in, I think, 1992. I can't remember exactly. So if you're going to take a step moving forward, and you mentioned the helmet radios, it seems to me something that's been used for 25 years might be a better step, and something that isn't even used anywhere, except for maybe some high schools where there's no internet issues, there's not 80,000 people or 70,000 people.
Yep.
Why are we trying to stretch the bubble on something that doesn't really exist yet, instead of something that has worked for years? Even the pictures, they were printing out pictures in the late 80s.
Yeah.
They were using services, what, 5
Down the
years
wire,
ago?
right? Throwing them down the wire from the press box.
No.
You remember
they
that,
were
right,
printing
Chad?
on the sideline, and I know in the early 90s.
Okay.
But-
So to answer your question about the coach's communication with the quarterback or defensive player, the NFL has basically told us there's a lot more that goes into it than you think, and they're changing. They just did an RFP to see if there's some better technology, because what they're using is basically two-way walkie-talkies. I mean, the NFL, the biggest league in the world.
No, it's a scrambled signal that goes up to the box. And
Correct, encrypted, but it's not that much different than. I mean, it could be a lot more reliable outside. They think it could be a lot more reliable.
25 years in, as opposed to never been done.
Correct, but from a fairness perspective, you know, what's available in the Sun Belt or available in the SEC or wherever is not going to be the same right across the board. And we just, our coaches at this point, not across the board, they're not all in agreement on this. Some that have had the experience with the NFL love it. Some that haven't are scared of it. Others that have used it both ways are kind of like, well, it makes a little bit of a difference, but it's not that big a deal for us. So I think the NFL would like us to have it because it would prepare their quarterbacks a little bit better, but that's not a reason for us to change it. We've talked ad nauseum about it. There's a lot of people on both sides of the issue. Would it cost more? Of course it would. What happened? How many more quarterbacks do we use than the NFL does? Which defensive player do you put it on? How many? A lot of just other issues that are out there that we have to deal with. So I would say the next, when the NFL figures out what their next technology is with it, it's got a better chance, because scrambled signals and all that stuff has to be a part of it. We were close to letting a couple conferences try it this year. But if there was no way to shut it off from the press box, which the NFL has one guy that sits there and opens it and closes it, another position to pay every week. If we didn't have that, then allowing it just to be an open mic or open communication signal, you know, imagine a quarterback rolling out and the coach yells in his ear, you know, X route or whatever.
I'm not advocating for it.
I'm not either, but I'm telling you the reality of the discussion is it's not there yet for us. I appreciate it, though. Yes, sir.
Paul Briggs, Old Dominion. One of my duties as an all-sports guy is being in communication with the truck. Case in point, one of our partners for Conference USA was ASN. And for example, for my basketball setups, they took the broadcast feed, and one of the things our coaches asked, and we had provided for both teams, they wanted the high sideline, the wide sideline, with the score overlay, because in our conference that they require score overlay be as part of any film that's exchanged. So therefore, even though it was coming from the truck broadcast feed, they wanted the score overlay, just the wide sideline. Now, that being said, because our TV partners had the capability to do that, what would stop them from next year from my facilities management or my head coach coming to ask us, well, if we have the same TV partners, why could we not get the all 22 angle, which I know there's some of us that have to provide that to our TV trucks for the broadcast. Why can we not get that ISO feed with the clock or down the distance on it?
Yep.
And what would make that any different than, because it is coming from a broadcast truck, even though it's an ISO feed?
Yeah, I guess the intent of it was whatever's being shown to the world is what you're able to take in.
So it would be the program feed.
Correct.
Instead of an ISO feed.
Yeah. But that's a fair question. I think it was kind of around the fringes. If we can get that feed to the box, why can't we use it? That's what the coaches would probably say. And maybe that's fine. I will say if they decide coming out of the conference meetings, hey, you guys really need to let the coaches feed be part of this, then you got to make sure that both sets of boxes have lines to them or whatever. Whatever you provide to the home has the visitors. Doesn't mean you have to provide them cameras. It doesn't mean you have to provide everything, but you got to provide the same setup you have for your home box that you do for the visitors. And that was a big sticking point too, because sometimes the visitors box might be neglected a little bit. Now the locker room is not the same. You don't need to put 10 big screens, flat screens up in the visitors room if you put it in the home room. Everybody kind of said, well, we always get a crappy locker room anyway on the road. So that's just another example of what we deal with. You guys will have to bring everything on the road, right?
You have to have network access to that locker.
Got to have a feed if they provide it to the home, but they may not do that.
Same number of feeds as well. So if the home
Locker room is not as specific. I would say there's some professional agreement that, hey, we're going to provide high-speed internet for you. We're going to provide the feed coming into this box or whatever. A coach wouldn't want you to do that, right? But conferences will kind of mandate that. That's our feedback.
Scott, you go first.
Scott.
Thank you, Jason. Scott at Kansas State football.
Yep.
I hope, I pray to the NCAA gods that the language for the rule use of technology becomes a little more detailed instead of vague. The vagueness is going to help drive a wedge between the haves and the have-nots as it relates to being able to provide technology. The competitive advantage will increase if there's not more details provided. I understand that the vagueness opens the door for the conference to further refine and massage the rules. But if it doesn't start at the top, saying here's what you can, here's what technology is defined as, here's what video means, then I think we're just going to be in a real hurt. For example, when you mentioned locker room, and no offense to Chris at Tech, Texas Tech, but it is a one in, one out. If you want to get dressed, then you wait for the other guy to get dressed. You're having a meeting next to the toilets at halftime. While you're at home, I'm guessing Chris is in a nice spacious locker room with displays of plenty, fresh potpourri scents. But in that respect, the coaches' booths are different sized, being able to afford more people. The plane that Kansas State flies on is not going to get any bigger to accommodate a staff to facilitate you bring your own. So when Kansas State goes to play Chris at Tech, it is what it is. the 4 people from my staff will show up to try and do our job and then the job for 2017. And we're going to have meetings in the shitter, pardon my French, with some type of electronic device, everyone standing around the sink trying to figure out what's going on. Vagueness will cause us problems.
So I'll go to you in just a second. Great points. Thank you, Scott. Scott? Yeah. I think, obviously, was going to hold this till the end, but I think having 1 or 2 of this group as part of our technology committee makes a heck of a lot of sense, at least advisory, what have you. Because writing... because technically writing this stuff is a lot more difficult than it is for us to write holding and block and below the waist and all those other rules that football coaches understand and or don't understand at times. But this is the kind of stuff where I think you're right. A top-down approach in some of these areas, as specific as we can be, will help you guys all understand and get on the same page with, okay, this is what they're saying. They're saying any feed you can get up there, if this is what we were going to say, any feed you can get up there, you can manipulate however you want to, however the words resonate with you guys and gals is what we want to put in the book. But it's got to be enforceable too from a conference perspective. Does that make sense? So they are the conferences, they being the conferences, I think have a lot of those situations, maybe where at Texas Tech it's a tough locker room situation. So do we even want to say anything about that? Do we just want to say, hey, home teams are limited to a certain number? I don't know if that's the right answer, but what would be feasible for on the road could be a discussion on that part of it to certainly have, and we would welcome it. I mean, I can definitely tell you that today that we'd be good with that. But we'll come back to you. Let's go here.
Jeremy Stone, Penn State. Not sure if it's the chicken or the egg, which one came first. How did all this start? And the piggyback off Scotty is I can see the Power 5 not having a problem with this at all, but the Hawaii's or the ODUs or any other smaller schools, how are we supposed to explain to the coaches when we go to those road games that we don't have their same accessibility, or a bowl game, or we played UCF in Ireland last year, 2 years ago, and the coach like NFL coaches don't think like college coaches and vice versa. College coaches want it now. NFL coaches, they understand. So it's hard to explain to them, we don't have the same thing we have, the beauty we have at home. We don't have the massive locker room at the road game that we do at the home games. So I don't understand from the next calendar year, how are we supposed to change the mindset of these coaches to have the same work environment between us sitting here on May 10th, 2016 to kicking off 2017 with all this technology ability? I'm not sure. I'm not telling you to tell us how to do our job.
Yep.
But how is NCAA expect us to do our job with the same amount of student count, same locker room, same this, same that?
So I think it starts with first getting these questions answered about what the rule is going to be in 2017, kind of the wrinkles of what's been passed, and then getting it to you guys for comment, whatever refinement you might want. But if we can come up with, and I mean this group and the NCAA maybe together, or however, if you want to do it separately and have us look at it, make sure we're comfortable with it. If there was a kind of video statement or video, I don't know, white paper, whatever you want to call it. White paper's a bad one. How about, direction for video use for teams? Something like that with relation to this rule, that all these questions that have come up, what if we want to get the coach's feet up there and manipulate it? Is that okay? It's almost like question, answer, but here's what you need to set up your locker room. Here's what you can do in the locker room. Here's what you can do in the press box. All those things, kind of a hit list of the things we talked about today, that you can then hand to your coach and say, Coach, here's what we're going to be able to do, or go through it with your coaches and say, this is what you can expect on the road. Everybody in the country is doing the same thing, or has to be doing the same thing. I think that might be the first step is to figure out what we can allow you to do, and the second part is then putting something together that you can execute. come here and then in the back.
I made 3 points, and so I'm just gonna go one by one and let you address each one. My first point is with the devices allowed in the coach's box, iPads, Surfaces. That does lend the ability to now record on those devices.
Yep.
So just something to think about. The second is discussions with my staff in terms of, so being at Akron and the MAC and cost and everything, discussions that I've had and ideas that I've come up with to help alleviate the cost in this is to allow network drops for home and away from the press box to the locker room for coaches' videos, and allow coaches' video to be reviewed in the locker room, halftime and post-game, but in the coach's box, limiting it to the broadcast feed. And that's I think a manageable cost at every level, and something, each locker room is equipped with 2 network ports to allow for an offensive and a defensive meeting, and they could at that point review coach's video as we upload it, and we could live capture or whatever we have to do from our standpoint. But I think that's a minimal cost that allows coaches what they want. And then last but not least is, if the NCAA can assist in relaying that, proper staffing for this needs to be planned for, and that just doing it and operating at the levels we currently operate is not practical.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sounds like you're signing up for a committee. Yep, in the back.
Ohio. I just wanted to say that the faster that the NCAA can put out whatever the answer is, the faster the better. Because July 1 new fiscal year, there are some stadiums of y'all that already are wired. You already have a sideline and end zone that can easily be taken in. For a lot of us, that's not the case. And so if we're talking about laying fiber in a stadium and testing it and doing it the right way, even 2017 might be too soon. Especially because right now we're sitting in a room and we don't know what we thought we knew.
Interesting.
No, understood. I mean, again, the spring meetings for a lot of the conferences are wrapping up. We do have a call on the books, so this will be helpful for me to go back to them and say, what was your understanding? Because it may be that several conferences, it is their understanding that this was going to be okay. Coaches' feeds were going to be okay. If that's the case, then we just need to clarify it and make sure the committee is okay with that, of course. Yeah, right here.
Rick Geitz from Illinois State.
Or right here.
Since I and there's several others from the FCS level, and then you also have Division II, and I know there's one here from Division III. Should you also have to look at each division level? Because some of our stadiums in our conference are nowhere near as close to being like the FBS level type thing.
Yep.
Is that have to be considered as well? Because each level is going to be different because of personnel, staffing wise.
Yeah, none of this, to answer your question, none of this will be like mandatory. If an institution doesn't feel like they can support whatever the number of maximum devices are in the booth, if we went that route, or number of feeds, all that stuff, it's going to be your capability. Now that's where conferences come in and say, okay, you must provide X for both booths. You must provide whatever the speed streaming feed is. In your case, might be ESPN 3 games, stuff like that. That's where they come in. Now, that's why these rules are written pretty broadly, because they're supposed to apply to all 3 divisions. But obviously, some of them you got to be a lot more specific. This is one of them that I think I'm hearing that loud and clear, and we know. I mean, it's hard to say, okay, well, what are the unintended consequences of this, and what would your coaches dream up to do to get around some of these rules? Yeah.
I appreciate you being here, and I know you're going to wrap it up.
Oh, another for Stanford.
As far as finding the right person at the NCAA, are
you our guy?
I'll be the guy.
So if we don't, if our conference doesn't know for any reason, our coaches don't know.
Yep.
You're the guy that's going to interpret the rule to say this is where it is right now.
Well, between me and Rogers Redding, who's our secretary editor for the committee, we would be the ones to answer. I mean, a lot of this is going to be the conference guys that I kind of mentioned too, like Woody and maybe David in your conference. You know, that's who I'm going to try to round up those cats and
But for
figure it
the
out.
other schools that may not have the infrastructure.
Yeah, for sure.
I want to go to the CAA.
Absolutely.
Tie and see what he says.
I'm your contact. Yeah, not all at once. So yeah, go.
Chris Velasquez, Texas Tech. With the conferences, you have the rule, broad rule. You know, what Scott was saying about how big it is. Well, that you're talking about the conferences will regulate and kind of implement the rules in there. What's going to happen when a Big 12 school goes and plays an SEC school, and the SEC's rules are different than what the Big 12's are, and all the way around. Where even if it's not Power 5, it's Mountain West, ACC matchups. You're going to someone else's place. It's a different conference. Well, coach, we can't do what we do in the Big 12 when we play a Mountain West school.
Yeah, so non-conference games is what the question was about. In the game contract, a lot of that applies. What we've actually put in the rule for like a suspended contest doesn't really deal with you guys, but the home team policy applies. So if they can't agree, like for example, there's a lightning storm or something and they can't get the game in, but the teams can't agree which, if it's a completed game or no contest or what have you, there's options. When there's no agreement, then the home team conference policy applies. That may be the case here. I can tell you as part of the game contract, this is part of what goes in those things, or will go in those things in the future. I mean, I know FBS-wise, our conferences work that out pretty smoothly usually. Can't say for every situation that's going to happen, but that should be worked out, obviously, in the game contract.
For this situation, it's a big one because it's a big financial difference.
Yeah, there's a big financial difference depending on what the final rule does.
No,
right?
there's a big financial difference in period. I mean, you've got teams in the Power 5 conferences that are not going to be able to afford or want to put money into this. It's where you've got the teams like the Alabamas, the top levels, Alabama's, Ohio State's, Miami's, a lot of these others that will, because they want to get that competitive edge.
Yeah, I think from my perspective, from the NCAA's perspective, what we can tell you what's allowed and what's not allowed is the feeds going in, the type of feeds. I suppose we could cap the limit number of people working in the booth, but that would not be even across the country, right? I mean, you got bigger booths in some places. I don't think that's something we'd want to get involved in. That's just the nature of it. You're going to have schools that travel one video guy.
Welcome to a non-socialistic society.
All right, we're going to take 2 more questions on this topic. I know we can go for days, but we're going to do 2 more questions and then take one more.
Thanks. Let's not turn this into a Trump rally.
In the way the
Whoa, baby.
Hot mic, sorry.
In
Go
the
ahead.
way the rule's written now, is there anything against a coach taking a player into the locker room during the game to review film?
The way it's, the question was, could you take a quarterback, let's say, into the locker room, look at film, and come back out? The way the rule is written, I think that would be okay. Nebraska, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
Yes.
John Riley, Western Kentucky, you were saying when teams play, the home rule would stay in. Would there be a set rule for bowl games, or would it be whoever the home team is for bowl?
Yeah, I said it could be the rule that the home, that's not necessarily written in stone. So the question was, what would happen in bowl games? Bowl games actually come under part of the NCAA structure in terms of licensing bowls, but they're under conference agreements for teams and that kind of thing. Replay has been kind of somewhere in between there. At times, one of the systems has been used in the regular season for a conference, and the conference that gets assigned the officials, they bring their video system they're comfortable with them. So I think this would be the same. Whatever you've done in the regular season would be what you'd want to bring with you. Those rules would extend, whatever we decide for the regular season would extend to bowl games.
All right.
Any more? Thanks, everybody.